Hello there, Dranish Whiskey Lore, and time for another whiskey tasting. Today, I'm going to be talking a little history and going into a tasting on very old Barton. We're going to find out a little bit about the brand and also the distillery, which is owned by Sazerac and is in Bardstown. And so that'll be coming up here in just a moment. First, gotta tell you, Lost History of Tennessee Whiskey, the book, is on its way, book number 3 from me, and this one is a 400-page history book of the history of Tennessee whiskey, and it's a history that not a lot of people know. In fact, I will say almost nobody knows. I've talked to distillers in Kentucky and Tennessee, and we've talked about some of the things that I have in this book, and they're like, really? Did not know any of that stuff. So this one is full of surprises. And I say it's going to rewrite the American whiskey history story because there is a big story that has been missing, and this is the one. And I've done it in storytelling style, and I am actually looking for people to be on my launch team. I want to get this thing off right on Amazon, so I'm launching first on Amazon, and we're just about a week or two away from that launch. So if you're interested in being a part of my launch team, then just go ahead and drop me an email. You can do so at info@whiskey-lore.com and let me know you want to be on the launch team. And a small obligation in terms of, I'd love for you to leave me a review of the book on amazon.com. And I am going to actually have a special price for people who are on the launch team. So if you want to do that, feel free to jump in, because I would love to have that, and I need to get the launch team set this week. Okay, enough of that, and on to talking about very old Barton. Now, this is the 86 proof version, meaning 43%. I don't know why I'm attracted to this. I mean, I've had the 90, which is 90 proof, 45%, and I have had the bottled in bond, which is 100 proof. There's also an 80 proof version of this. But for some reason, this one seems to be kind of my sweet spot. So this is the one I'm going to do a tasting on. I think the other thing is that this is widely available, whereas the 100 proof is a little bit tough to find. It's only in particular markets, so that makes it a little tougher to get. So it makes more sense. Let's do a tasting on something that you probably can find a bottle of somewhere without having to go to Kentucky or figure out where they're doing these actual launches. Now, Barton was a great distillery to tour. My Kentucky book, I listed as my second favorite distillery to go to, but you can't go to it anymore because Sazerac has decided to close it down. It was a free tour. That's part of what made it great, but they also had a really cool thing called and now I've forgotten the name of it. But anyway, there was a special tour you could go on. It's 11 o'clock every day. And if you went on that tour, it was free, but you got to see a lot more of the distillery. It was just an absolutely great experience. Now, seeing that distillery, there's only a little bit of the original distillery still there. It was built in 1889 by Tom S. Moore. Now, Tom Moore was actually a partner with Mattingly. It was Mattingly and Moore, and then they split. When they split, he started this distillery on his own and ran it for a while. Prior to Prohibition, it had been bought out and then shut down, of course, with Prohibition. Came back, and it was his son, Con Moore, that ended up opening it back up again. Had to do some rebuilding because there were some fires there. And then a man named Oscar Getz actually bought it in 1944. Now, he was from Chicago. He was a collector. He absolutely loved collecting bourbon memorabilia. He would find, stuff that was just laying around from the old distillery, and he would collect this stuff. And he turned the Barton, which had changed names to Barton at some point. I think it happened kind of in the 50s. I've read where it was originally changed in the 40s when he took over, but it's somewhere in the 50s that name starts showing up in newspaper ads. So I'm going to suggest that maybe it was in the 50s when the name changed to Barton. Why it's called Barton, nobody knows. You can go on the tour. Well, you could go on the tour in the past, and they would tell you, we don't know where that name came from. It's not named after the town it's in. It's not named after anybody we really know. It's just all of a sudden became Barton Distillery. But Oscar Getz turned that front of the visitor center into a little museum. And after a while, he collected so much stuff that they moved all that stuff over to what is now the Oscar Getz Museum, which is right behind the Catholic Church, right around the corner, actually, from where the distillery is. So I always tell people, if you're going to Bardstown, definitely plan on going to the Oscar Getz Museum. You'll see some cool memorabilia there. The bottles he collected, all that stuff is now over at that distillery now, or at that is it Stratton Hall? Something like that it's called. Big brick building right behind the church. Now this whiskey to me has the sweetness that I get out of 1792, like a fruity sweetness. And both these come out of the same distillery. Not sure on the age on this whiskey. At one time it was labeled as a 6-year. It's at least 4 years because it's a straight bourbon whiskey and they didn't put an age on here. So it's at least 4 years. So somewhere between 4 and 6 years. Doesn't really fit very old, I know. I'm not sure exactly why they came up with this very old concept. But, and you can tell by the color actually that it is not a very dark bourbon. But there's some nice wood spices coming through on the nose and some orchard fruits that I'm kind of pulling out of that as well. Little bit of a citrus note, maybe an orangey kind of note coming through. Now this is 75% corn, 15% rye, and 10% barley. And there is a hint of that rye coming through. We'll do a taste. Cheers. So initially it has a really nice mouthfeel, and the apple comes through. Caramel, vanilla, a little bit of oak tannin comes in, just a hint. Some brown sugar in there. And then it thins right out, actually, on the finish. It's got a decent mouthfeel at first, but then it just thins right out. Gets a bit dry. There's some cinnamon left on the palate, kind of a red hot cinnamon. But it's not overly aggressive. It's just a really nice drinker, and I think that's the reason why I kind of prefer this one, because to me, it has a good balance of flavor along with the non-aggressive. So it's just something that you can just drink, and it's a good, as they call it, an everyday drinker, and a bottle of this is not going to set you back that much if you can find it. And like I say, 86 is a little bit more widely available. Hope you enjoyed this. What do you think of Very Old Barton? Have you had it? Have you compared it with like 1792 to see, do you feel like it's kind of in that same category? It's the sense I get out of them that they're both really nice drinkers. And, Sazerac, Buffalo Trace gets all of the acclaim and all the attention. But I think what they make at Barton is top-notch stuff, and definitely worth a go if you get a chance to get yourself a bottle. So something worth trying out. And hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Make sure that you're subscribed if you're going to want to see more of these videos down the road. And join Patreon. Patreon is free now, so you can actually jump in there at patreon.com/whiskeylore. And I'm setting up chats and doing a whole lot of other stuff over there, and also working with my launch team there as well for the Tennessee Whiskey book. Until next time, cheers and Slainte.